proof to the old saying that adwen onye nyimpa kro ne tirim, to wit, knowledge does not reside in the head of one person. I wish to acknowledge the chairman of the organizing committee, elder statesman, Dr. Ishmael Yamson, and the distinguished members of the committee for working tirelessly to put together this important dialogue. It is with great anticipation that we embark on this first national economic dialogue in over a decade, a pivotal moment in our national history. This dialogue is not only a significant and defining moment, but it's also an important reenactment of our history when the nation assembled at a similar forum in Senchi some 10 years ago. Today, we set out to attempt to resolve economic puzzle of much greater magnitude and scale than those that confronted us some 10 years ago. This dialogue is therefore an opportunity to reflect on our economic reality, address the pressing challenges, and chart a course towards a more prosperous future for our citizens. It is my hope and prayer that the lessons that will emerge from these conversations will guide our steps, and that we may not repeat the mistakes of recent past. The panel discussions, workshops, and breakout sessions have been carefully designed to confront the pressing economic challenges of our time. The resultant prescriptions and the critical policy initiatives will drive structural reforms and our transformation agenda to reset our economy and secure the prosperity of our citizens. Mr. Chairman, as we embark on this development of our medium-term plans, commencing with the forthcoming budget on March 11th, the insight, expertise, and experiences that will be garnered from these deliberations will prove very invaluable assets that will shape our collective path for our future. In this time of crisis, it is very imperative that we acknowledge the significant toll that has been borne by every Ghanaian, particularly the poor, from severe currency depreciation to hyperinflation, from haircut to steep tax increases, from rising inflation, from rising fuel costs to rising electricity prices, and very increasing interest rates. Fellow countrymen and women, the economic crisis isn't over. Indeed, the full length of our current crisis is still unraveling by the day. The situation requires significant sacrifice from all of us to stem the bleeding and place our economy back on the right trajectory. I'm pleased to note that His Excellency the President has taken the lead and has given the strongest signal to our commitment to sacrifice. In furtherance to his commitment, we have streamlined and realigned the size of government, evidenced by the reduction of ministers of state to 60 from the initial 123 and later to 88 ministers. We have followed. This we have also followed with significant budget cuts that will be announced soon for the office of the President and further prohibition of the first-class travels by all government officials. These actions represent merely the initial steps in our ongoing journey towards fiscal discipline and good governance. Mr. Chairman, let me seize this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to the organized labor and the Ghana Employers Association for their understanding and collaboration in search of an agreement concerning the minimum wage and base pay. I wish at this point to reaffirm to labor that the NDC government, headed by His Excellency President Mahama, will commit to transparency, accountability, and good governance. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would now crave your indulgence to take you to a presentation on the state of the Ghanaian economy. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be taking you to only 4 chapters: the growth trajectory, the long-term trends, and the urgent need for us to reset, the fiscal challenges we face, and the opportunities to reset, and I'll make some proposal for the way forward. Your Excellency, truth be told, the causes of the 2022 macroeconomic crisis can be traced well before COVID-19 and the deterioration of global economic conditions. In fact, when these shocks struck, the Ghanaian economy was already in a very precarious state. Ghana has experienced a strong growth since 2000s, beginning 2000. Strong economic growth over the past decades placed Ghana in the top 10 fastest growing countries in the sub-Saharan Africa, reaching middle income status in the year 2011. Between the year 2008 to 2019, Ghana's economy expanded by about 6.8% per year, above regional and global averages of 4.4% and 2.7% respectively. GDP per capita doubled, averaging 3% growth per year. However, the growth was driven by oil and mining, accompanied by huge debt accumulation. Oil production began in the year 2011 and contributed steadily to economic growth, representing 5% of GDP on average. Moreover, between the year 2013 and 2019, nearly 20% of GDP growth was directly attributed to mining, in fact, gold mining. Simultaneously, the growth acceleration was sustained by increased fiscal imbalances, which fueled debt accumulation. The fiscal deficit averaged about 4% of GDP between the year 2008 and 2019, more than twice as much as in the year 2000, between 2000 and 2007. Public debt went from 20% of GDP after a peak in the year 2006 to 93% at the central government level in the year 2022. Although these factors led to increased vulnerabilities to the commodity prices and shocks, Ghana failed to take action. The growth, as we have seen, has not translated into structural transformation and productivity. There has been very limited progress in structural transformation, with the agriculture sector still representing 1/5 of GDP and also 1/3 of the labor force, about 33%. Manufacturing productivity remains relatively low, and higher productivity sectors in industry, such as commercial mining and construction, employing few people, the informal sector and self-employment have absorbed a large share of the labor force, even among the higher income quintiles. This is contrary to what we've seen in some advanced countries and medium-sized countries. Ghana's export basket has remained concentrated in simple products with low value addition. The economy is dominated by primary products with limited value addition, which restrict the potential for economic diversification and growth. Ghana's top 3 exports, gold, crude oil, and cocoa, accounted for 85.1% of the country's total export in the year 2024. High productivity manufacturing is relatively small and has not exploited the opportunities that we have with ECOWAS, AGWA, EPA, and AFTA. This reliance on primary commodities highlights the need for strategic effort to diversify the economy and reduce dependency on a narrow range of products, taking advantage of global value chain. Your Excellency, unfortunately, income inequalities has progressively worsened. Inequalities across regions persist due to lack of economic convergence, disparities in service delivery, and environmental degradation. Poverty rate in Upper East, Upper West, and Northern region remains above 50%. Rapid urbanization has led to rising disparities within cities. Although urban poverty rates have dropped over the last decade, the number of urban poor has not increased at all. Poverty is more prevalent in lower elevated slums, where communities experience higher fertility, lower school attendance, very low access to sanitary services, and vulnerable to natural disaster. In the year 2024, Ghana's inequality was worse than Côte d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Benin, Togo, and other neighboring countries, unfortunately. I'll now take you to long-term trends and the urgent need for us to reset. Your Excellency, the current growth model will not be sufficient to meet Ghana's needs and aspiration if nothing is done. And it will mean that we have to take urgent steps to correct this trend. Ghana needs to take advantage of its demographic dividend. With 500,000 young people joining the labor force each year, 500,000. Within the current growth model, growth will reduce to only 3.8%, which represents 2.4% GDP per capita in less than 15 years from now. There's an urgent need to implement ambitious reforms to reset the economy in the next 4 years. Otherwise, we'll go down in terms of growth. Transforming Ghana's economic growth from one based on factor accumulation and natural resource depletion to one driven by productivity and human capital is very critical. Economic growth can be sustained over 6.5% of GDP, fully offsetting headwinds from demographic trends and the decline in natural resource depletion if we are to adjust from the current baseline situation. Your Excellency, the graph on the left-hand side shows the baseline situation from now to the year 2050 using the baseline and where the growth will be. We've adjusted for moderate reforms and we have also adjusted for ambitious reforms. The moderate reforms will largely mean that we will have to quickly bring on stream the Pecan field, and that will adjust from where we are and improve the growth trend. Whereas ambitious reforms will mean we'll have to do a lot more than adjusting from the Pecan oil fields. Without comprehensive reforms, unfortunately, Ghana will only achieve upper middle income status after the year 2050. And we cannot wait till the year 2050 before we become an upper middle income country. There's an urgent need for comprehensive policies and institutional reforms that enhance productivity, improve the quality of infrastructures, services, and elevate human capital and workforce skills. These reforms have the potential of transforming Ghana within a generation, tripling its per capita income by the year 2050. There is the need to reorient fiscal policy to support the growth and structural transformation. Your Excellency, again, the graph at the left-hand side shows the baseline and the moderate reforms and ambitious reforms. Unfortunately, looking at where we are going, if nothing is done, Ghana will only become an upper middle income country in the year 2050. With moderate reforms, we'll be able to become an upper middle income country in the year 2042. But if we are to do well and introduce very ambitious reforms, Ghana will indeed become an upper middle income country before the year 2038. And we have no choice. We will have to introduce measures to reset our economy. There's an urgent need for economic transformation to reset Ghana. And we have 7 chapters to reset our economy. Chapter 1 is resetting the economy and creating prosperity for all. Chapter 2 is jobs for all. Chapter 3 is Ghana's framework for industrial revitalization, support and transformation. We call it the Ghana First. The 4th one will be powering growth through infrastructure development. 5, investing in people for inclusive growth. 6, restoring good governance and combating corruption. And 7, deepening international relations and foreign policy so that Ghana can benefit from economic diplomacy. Your Excellency, we face fiscal challenges, and indeed there are opportunities to support this reset. First, I will take you through public expenditure, other words called public spending. The fiscal space, as we speak, is constrained by high interest rates, high energy subsidies, and mounting rigidities. Government expenditure grew faster than GDP over the past 8 years. Non-discretionary spending severely limited the fiscal space due to high wage bill, high energy subsidy, ballooning interest payment, spending indiscipline, and weak expenditure controls, including commitment. These categories of non-discretionary expenditures, namely public sector wages, interest payment, earmark funds, account for about 70% of Ghana's total expenditure. All these expenses crowd out expenditure for capital purposes, capital expenditure. Social spending has been very low and is often misused. The National Health Insurance Scheme faces financing shortfalls and also misuse of resources. So the problem with National Health Insurance is not only with the financing shortfalls, but also with misuse of resources. Financing shortfalls for National Health Insurance. The National Health Insurance no longer receives its full National Health Insurance levy as approved by law due to the Capping Act. Additionally, resources increasingly diverted towards non-core activities, and this hinders efficiency. Today, less than 60% of the National Health Insurance budget goes to non-claim payment. And you could see that in the year 2008, from the graph, we used to use 86% of the National Health Insurance budget for the purposes of claim payment. This has reduced to about 58%. In fact, in the year 2022, it went down to about 50%. Public spending also on education is inefficient and skewed towards secondary and tertiary levels. Only about 1/4 of government education spending goes to pre-primary and primary levels. Most funds go to staff compensation, leaving little for classroom materials and infrastructure improvement. And you could see how our education budget is skewed, also from the graph from the right-hand side. Your Excellency, infrastructure spending, again, is highly inefficient and mostly uncompleted. Even a small improvement in spending efficiency could lead to significant progress in infrastructure quality. For example, an increase in efficiency to match best performing emerging markets would deliver about 20% improvement in the quality of Ghana's road. Spreading resources on too many projects without completion has become the problem of Ghana. For example, Agenda 111, where $400 million have been spent in the last 4 years without a single hospital in operation, with about $1.5 billion needed for completion. The amount spent of $400 million could have completed a minimum of 22 district hospitals instead of spreading yourself too thin. Maintenance is indeed cheaper than new infrastructure, but funds to road maintenance is also inadequate and often misused. Another example is only 41% of our primary roads were in good shape in the year 2021. Funds for road maintenance cover only 45% of maintenance needs. And this 45% of funds that has been allocated for road maintenance are often used for development instead of maintenance. And so you could see that most of our roads are deteriorating. Your Excellency, the energy sector in Ghana has become a ticking time bomb costing about 2% of GDP every year. Every year. The objectives of the energy sector recovery program are completely off track. Fixing the sectors require radical measures. High generational costs due to lack of competition and limited renewable capacity in the energy mix is a problem. High distribution and collection losses at ECG. High distribution and collection losses at ECG is also a problem. Currently, only 62% of total energy purchased by ECG is collected. And even out of this 62%, 65% of that amount is used to pay for supplies through the cash water fall mechanism. Unfortunately, 35% of ECG's revenue is used to take care of ECG themselves over things that they don't actually require. Non-cost reflective tariffs. About 50% of cost of service provision is a matter for us to discuss. However, I still maintain that tariffs should not be used to reward ECG's inefficiencies and other inefficiencies in the system. Unpaid legacy arrests at end of year 2022 was $1.3 billion. Annual cumulative sector shortfall in 2024 stood at $2.2 billion, despite government transfer of $2.1 billion in the year 2023 and 2024. Projected cumulative financial shortfalls for energy sector is over $9 billion by the year 2026. And this is without any intervention. And if we assume business as usual. This simply means we have to take action, and the action must be now. Your Excellency, the cocoa sector also poses a significant fiscal risk. Declining cocoa production with record high prices. Cocoa production has dropped nearly 50% over the past 3 years. The 2023-2024 crop season, Cocoa Board would not be able to supply 330,000 tons of cocoa contracts. Existing forward sales contracts locked in lower prices than current market rates. Revenue losses of $840 million for both Cocoa Board and the Ghanaian farmer as a result of what is happening at Ghana Cocoa Board. Additionally, about $500 million losses for rollover contract was achieved in the last year. The market prices and differentials is what aids smuggling. Large gap between market price and farmers' payment encourage smuggling and threatened long-term sustainability. This implies that for every ton of cocoa delivered this year, in fulfillment of the rollover contract, Ghana Cocoa Board and the Ghanaian farmer would lose $4,000 per ton in revenue. No wonder we are unable to offer the cocoa farmer the right price, because every ton delivered because of the rollover contract, $4,000 has been lost. And so the government is unable to offer enough for the cocoa farmer. And this is what is actually leading to the smuggling of cocoa beans to our neighboring countries, Togo and Ivory Coast. Cocoa Board's extra budgetary spending is also a major fiscal risk. Total debt at the Ghana Cocoa Board is $32.5 billion, of which $9.7 billion is due to be paid at the end of September 2025, this year. Outstanding cocoa road contract reached $21 billion, in fact, $1.3 billion in the year 2024, of which only $4.4 billion accounted for in Cocoa Board financial statement. Supplier arrests is difficult to quantify because of lack of transparency, and it has become a major concern to industries. Your Excellency, the elephant in the room. SOEs and joint ventures company showing mounting operational and financial risk. Almost all state-owned enterprises are in the red. Almost all of them are in the red. From the Electricity Company of Ghana to the Agricultural Development Bank. Almost all of them are in the red. In fact, beginning from the year 2021, 2022, and 2023, you will see that Cocoa Board posed some profit of 2.2 billion in the year 2023. But Your Excellency, this is artificial profit. This profit is because they failed to service their debt because of the debt suspension. And so all the cocoa bills that were due at the time, they failed to pay because of debt suspension. Subsequently, this debt still exists, and so we will need to take action to restructure most of the state-owned enterprises. Fiscal challenges and opportunity to support, and the need for us to talk about revenue now. We can't develop if we fail to generate resources internally. Your Excellency, Ghana has not performed well in revenue mobilization compared to its peers. Ghana's domestic revenue mobilization has stagnated in the last decade and remained below our peers. Ghana collected 13.5% of GDP in revenue, tax revenue. Collection from other major taxes remain low, especially value-added tax, as compared to our peers. Numerous exemptions and complexity of tax system have a detrimental impact on revenue. Tax administration challenges also contribute to compliance gap. And I have two different graphs, the one on total tax revenue and the one we need to take action, the value-added tax. You could see the long line, the yellow line, dotted line, and the dotted red, representing where Ghana is and where our peers are. When you look at the other one, the value-added tax, where Ghana is and where our peers are, clearly shows that Ghana is lagging behind in the collection of tax revenue and, most significantly, value-added tax. This will mean we need urgent reforms to rationalize our value-added tax regime. Currently, it has been distorted, and as a result, there is very little compliance. The VAT gap is huge. Last year, GRA programmed to increase the VAT effort by 32%. Unfortunately, they ended up doing 17%, clearly below inflation, and that should tell you that there is a significant problem. The fiscal cost of tax exemption calls for rationalization, whilst mitigating the impact on the poor. The Tax Exemption Act in the year 2022 set out clear criteria and guidance, but other legislations introduce further tax incentives that deviate from the national tax benchmark. Tax exemptions from VAT, PIT, and import duties are estimated to generate a loss of about 3.9% of GDP. This amount does not include corporate income tax exemptions. While these exemptions often offer some relief, they are costly, in fact, very costly, and they create leakages, complexity, and distortions in the tax system. The largest source in VAT foregone revenue is the VAT exemption on supply of dwellings and land, representing 33% of our overall cost. But to be fair, VAT on dwellings, VAT on real estate was introduced in the year 2023 by the previous administration. Unfortunately, getting to the year 2024 during the elections, they decided to abandon it because of elections. Your Excellency, the truth is that the tax exists, but it was abandoned ahead of the election. And that alone will mean we will have to close the gap immediately. Ghana was not sufficiently capitalized. Your Excellency, this point is extremely important. Ghana has not sufficiently capitalized on its extractive sector to generate revenue to support development and diversification. We struggle to leverage on our natural wealth, capturing its rent and channeling it towards productivity, infrastructure, and human capital. Natural resource rent simply means the difference between revenue of a commodity and the cost of producing that very commodity. Currently, the rent is 14% of Ghana's GDP. Unfortunately, fiscal revenue from extractive industries are around 1.5% of GDP because we fail to fully capture the economic rent from our natural resources. Simple put, whilst extractive industry is enjoying a rent of 14%, Ghana has not been able to take advantage of the rent. All what I want to say is that, can we take advantage and take 1% of the 14% rent as a country to support our development in infrastructure and also human capital? Fiscal challenges and opportunities, Your Excellency, with their other considerations outside taxes, expenditures, and financing. And the other considerations are institutional reforms and corresponding policy directions that we will need to guide us. The fiscal rule. The Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018 failed to contain debt accumulation, the very reason why we set up the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Lack of enforcement and credibility issues, limited counter-cyclical flexibility in the law were the problems. SOE reforms are urgently required. Poorly performed SOEs in energy and agriculture sectors burden public finances. Growing fiscal risk from contingent liability and quasi-fiscal operations that we need to address. And to be straight, the non-performing SOEs in energy, I'm referring to ECG. A non-performing SOE in agriculture, I'm referring to Ghana Cocoa Board. Your Excellency, the PFM and procurement systems urgently need to be upgraded in order for us to achieve a long-term fiscal discipline, because currently they are becoming quite outmoded, and there's the need for us to restore it. Broader macroeconomic framework. Containing high inflation and stabilizing the cedi is key for fiscal action and growth. Inflation remains stubborn, around 23% since May 2024. Climate issues such as drought in key agriculture areas and delayed rainfall have harmed production, while supply chain challenges have further impacted on food costs. High inflation reduces cost of living and worsens food insecurity, particularly for the most vulnerable. Tight monetary policy stance is essential to control inflationary limits. Reduce risk premium and improve credit to private sector and encourage exchange rate stability is essential to contain the debt service and pass-through of import prices. Your Excellency, the recent reduction in T-bills alone is saving Ghana about $1 billion, 1 billion Ghana cedis. And that 1 billion Ghana cedis can be channeled to critical areas of the economy. And clearly, we need to take steps to reduce the borrowing and also reduce the cost of borrowing so that we'll be able to channel the dividend to support our national development. I now move to the way forward and conclude. Fiscal policy in the past 8 years has been very ineffective. As a result, the macroeconomic situation remains very fragile. It is imperative that we build a momentum for reforms. The quality of adjustment will be key to support growth and protect the poor and most vulnerable. Your Excellency, we have 7 focus areas: enhancing domestic revenue mobilization, balancing equity, simplicity, and efficiency, pursuing a quantitative fiscal consolidation, ring-fencing growth, enhancing spending, and social spending is the second focus item. The third is ensuring compliance with public financial management and public procurement laws, implementing robust commitment control to maximize value for money and ensure fiscal discipline. The fourth is to enhance the efficiency of public spending in social programs and public infrastructure. The fifth is phasing out costly, regressive, and ineffective subsidies in the energy sector, whilst increasing targeted social programs. The sixth is reforming state-owned enterprises that create contingent liability and quasi-fiscal spending. Example is Ghana Cocoa Board and the almighty Electricity Company of Ghana. Your Excellency, strengthening Ghana's fiscal framework by redesigning the fiscal rule, strengthening automatic stabilizers, while containing budget rigidities and revenue earmarking is the seventh one. And to conclude, Mr. President, fellow citizens, we can reset our economy. We can do this. We just have to be disciplined and understand that the short-term benefits we gain today has a long-term consequences on our future. Let's do this for Mother Ghana. Thank you, Your Excellency.
This is the day. A nation of strength, a nation of pride, a nation of freedom and justice. Ghana, 68 years strong and still rising. This Independence Day, we reflect on our journey, review our progress, and reset for the Ghana we want. A brighter future is within reach by embracing our diversity, nurturing our talents, and working together in unity. We can build a prosperous nation. Let's celebrate with the theme, Reflect, Review, Reset. Key events will include 28th February Crossroads shooting incident, 5th March Presidential Awards for school children, and 6th March Commemorative Guard of Honor at the Presidency. Together, let's strive to build the Ghana we want. Ghana, Ayeko!
Please put your hands together one more time for the Minister of Finance. You know, it's one thing to present over 30 slides of macroeconomic data. It's entirely another thing to do it on national television with your boss, the president, the vice president, all sitting. And you are so focused, you didn't even touch the water I brought to you. Atufosen, put your hands together for him. Amazing. I think if there was any doubt you were ready for this job, that doubt has been dispelled. You are delivering the news here, not even smiling. Very powerful. But there's hope at the end of the tunnel because the president will be joining us shortly on stage to now articulate his vision for economic transformation, which is an imperative. The foundation has been laid. It's very clear the president's vision will be key to take us where we have to get to. But before we do that, we're going to invite the National Dance Company of the National Theatre to help us relax a bit before we hear from His Excellency. Let's put our hands together for them. Thank you. Shall we now rise and on behalf of the chairman of the dialogue, respectfully invite the conference convener, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, for the keynote address. Please put your hands together for Mr. President.
I was happy when that documentary ended. You can imagine how uncomfortable I was watching myself. But thank you. Your Excellency, Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Her Ladyship Gertrude Esaba Saki Tokonu, Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, the Right Honorable Edward Do Ajaho, Chairman of the Council of State, members of the Council of State, the Honorable Chief of Staff Julius Debra, the Honorable Minister for Finance Dr. Kaisel Ato Forsen, Ministers and Deputy Ministers of State, Dr. Ishmael Yamson, and I call him Uncle Yamson, Chairman of the National Economic Dialogue Planning Committee, the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Pandit Isiama, former governors of the Bank of Ghana, heads of security services, the Dean and members of the Diplomatic Corps, His Royal Majesty King Takiteku Churu II, the Gamanche, heads of political parties, captains of industry, chiefs and queen mothers, friends from the media, fellow countrymen, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great honor and a deep sense of responsibility that I welcome you to this National Economic Dialogue. This gathering is more than just a symbolic exercise or the fulfillment of a campaign promise. It is a decisive step in our collective responsibility to reset Ghana's economy, restore confidence, and build the prosperous future we all envision. Today we are here to begin the process of engaging in honest, solution-driven discussions about the challenges we face and the opportunities before us. Our nation stands at a pivotal moment, and the choices we make now will determine the trajectory of our economy for generations to come. As President, I have the honor of leading the conversation on the theme, Resetting Ghana, Building the Economy We Want Together. This theme reflects our shared commitment to creating an economy that is resilient, inclusive, and built on sustainable growth. It is an invitation to all stakeholders to contribute their expertise, ideas, and dedication to this national effort. Ghana is at a critical crossroads in its economic development. The challenges before us are stark, and the economic distress we face are undeniable. However, our collective resilience, ingenuity, and determination have always been the driving force of our nation's progress. We are not here merely to recount our struggles, nor are we here to resign ourselves to economic stagnation. We are here to seek solutions, to adopt strategies that will put us on a sustainable growth trajectory, and to ensure that we build an economy that works for every Ghanaian. For me, this is not just another policy discussion. It is an urgent call to action. A crucial moment for us as stakeholders to unite with purpose and resolve the challenges that face us. We've gathered here to create a powerful platform where government officials, policymakers, business leaders, economists, industry experts, development partners, and other key figures come together to shape the future of our nation. The insights, diverse perspectives, and actionable recommendations that emerge from these discussions must transcend theoretical frameworks and drive real, impactful decisions that will guide our national economy forward. Throughout our engagement, we will focus on practical strategies to restore macroeconomic stability and pave the way for long-term economic transformation. This includes developing policies that stimulate growth and create sustainable job opportunities for our rapidly growing population. We'll also examine the structural reforms that are necessary to unleash the private sector's potential and make it truly the engine of growth that drives job creation and innovation. Strengthening economic governance institutions will be a key topic of discussion, ensuring transparency and accountability at all levels of government, while taking decisive action to combat corruption and other things that hinder our progress. It is vital that as we move towards a more prosperous future, and that the economic gains we achieve are distributed equitably, leaving no one behind and fostering inclusive growth that benefits every sector of society, from the most marginalized communities to the industrial leaders of tomorrow. This dialogue is a defining moment, and our decisions must set the course for a more resilient, prosperous, and equitable economy for generations to come. When I assumed office barely 2 months ago, I inherited an economy that was in a state of deep crisis. one that was weighted down by numerous challenges. The economy was reeling from unprecedented levels of debt, soaring inflation, high unemployment, declining levels of foreign direct investment, and low business confidence. The financial struggles that our nation is facing have not arisen overnight. They have been the result of several years of financial mismanagement, irresponsible borrowing, reckless spending, and weak leadership that failed to address the underlying structural issues within our economy. This pervasive mismanagement culminated in Ghana's defaults on its debt obligations. This marked a devastating milestone for our dear country, spawning a cascade of economic problems that have severely impacted our people. Huge fiscal deficits, excessive government expenditures, and overall financial imprudence have compromised our economic resilience. Credible rating agencies such as Moody's, Fitch, Standard & Poor's have all downgraded our international credit rating consecutively, leading to capital flight and a loss of investor confidence and trust. The Bank of Ghana, instead of serving as an independent monetary authority, became a financing tool for government's excesses, fueling inflation and devaluing our currency. The cost of living has skyrocketed to unbearable levels, leaving families grappling with the inability to afford even the most basic necessities. At the same time, inflation erodes the value of wages and savings, pushing many into a cycle of poverty. Meanwhile, the ill-considered collapse of indigenous banks significantly reduced indigenous presence in Ghana's financial and banking space and led to massive job losses. For too long, Ghana has been plagued by short-term decision-making that prioritizes political expediency over long-term stability. We refuse to accept this as Ghana's reality. We reject the notion that economic hardship must be our norm. We refuse to surrender to the forces of stagnation and decline. We are gathered here today because we believe in Ghana's ability to rise again. We are gathered here to reclaim our country's economic strength and emerge as a beacon of progress on the African continent, not only a beacon of democracy, but a beacon of economic prosperity. This dialogue here today must serve as that turning point, a forum where we move beyond diagnosing the problems and instead implement concrete, pragmatic solutions to reposition Ghana on a path of sustainable growth. As President, I am committed to ensuring that the lessons learned from this crisis will shape the decisions we make in the years ahead. The mistakes of the past must not define our future, and I vow to do everything in my power to steer this nation towards a brighter and more prosperous path. My fellow citizens, I know that the road to economic recovery will be challenging, but we must not relent in our quest to rebuild the Ghana we all want for the sake of our children and our children's children. We owe it to ourselves, our children, and our country to rebuild an economy that is resilient, that is sustainable, and capable of delivering real opportunities for every citizen. My priority as President is to restore macroeconomic stability. We must enforce responsible public financial management and ensure fiscal discipline at all levels of government while working to reduce hardships for our people. Under my leadership, the Bank of Ghana's independence will be safeguarded to implement prudent monetary policies that curb inflation, that stabilize our currency, and rebuilds our foreign reserves. We must never again allow reckless borrowing and excessive government spending to undermine our progress. Fiscal responsibility must become the bedrock of our national development strategy, and every cedi spent must deliver tangible value to the Ghanaian people. We must review our laws. Thank you. We must review our laws to eliminate excessive waste in the procurement of government supplies and projects. Single-source procurement must be the rare exception rather than the norm. We must also subject government projects above a certain threshold to value for money audits. And just this morning, I was reviewing some of the procurement reports. And there was this procurement for poultry farmers, 10,000 units of something. And it was single source. The reason for single source was urgency. And one company was giving the contract to supply 10,000 units of whatever it was. The supplier and the person who assembles it was not allowed to bid. And so the company who didn't want it went to the supplier, bought the items for 4,500 and came and sold them for 6,600 to government and walked away with 21 million cedis on that supply. I mean, how can you do this? I mean, it was our own company we're running. How would we do a thing like this? But that is government bleeding. Everybody cutting their pound of flesh. That must stop. Beyond stabilization, we must undertake a fundamental transformation of our economic structure. Ghana's economy has been heavily reliant on the export of raw materials, such as gold, cocoa, and crude oil, leaving us vulnerable to global price fluctuations and external shocks. We must end this dependence. It is time to transition to a value-added industrialized economy that creates jobs, that boosts exports, and reduces our reliance on imports. Manufacturing and agro-processing must be expanded to ensure that we derive maximum value from our natural resources. Just recently, I think yesterday, a former Chief Justice of this country asked for a review of agreements governing our extractive industry. She describes the current agreements as coming from the Guggisberg era. I agree with her. There must be increased indigenous participation in the exploitation of our natural resources. Ghana must earn more from its natural resource endowment if we are to create wealth and prosperity for our people. My fellow citizens, agriculture is a vital sector of our economy that must be modernized through mechanization, improved irrigation, and the adoption of technology-driven innovations to enhance productivity and ensure food security. We must also harness the power of technology to bridge the digital divide, ensuring that every Ghanaian, no matter their location or background, has access to the opportunities that the digital economy provides. High-speed internet and robust digital infrastructure are no longer luxuries. They are necessities that fuel economic growth and global competitiveness. My fellow citizens, all this must be underpinned by urgent governance reforms that promote transparency and hold leadership accountable to the people in whom sovereignty resides. The policies required to bring our economy back on track and sustain the gains made will require multi-stakeholder buy-in. Short-term convenience, which has informed economic decision-making in the past, must give way to long-term and medium and long-term strategic planning, which will help us to avoid the cyclical economic booms and busts that have wreaked havoc on our people. My fellow citizens, I have the political will to see through such reforms, but these reforms must be the product of our collective thinking and synthesization of well-considered proposals from stakeholders in the Ghanaian economy, and that is why we are here this morning. As I had cause to say when I delivered the message on the state of the nation to Parliament last week, consensus building and consultation will be the hallmark of this administration, because I believe that all of us as Ghanaians have a role to play in the development of our dear nation, And I would very much like to be remembered as the president who provided a platform for this to happen. My fellow Ghanaians, a new era is upon us, an era of bold transformation, economic expansion, and limitless opportunities. At the heart of our vision for Ghana's future is the implementation of a 24-hour economy that works for all. This strategy will revolutionize our economic landscape. It will create sustainable jobs and position Ghana as a competitive force on the global stage. Across the world, thriving economies have embraced continuous productivity, ensuring that businesses, industries, and essential services operate around the clock to maximize growth and prosperity. It is time for Ghana to also step forward and break free from the limitations of a traditional economy and embrace a future where opportunity is not confined by time. Under this initiative, this administration is committed to providing incentives and tax breaks for manufacturers and businesses that extend their operational hours, encouraging a shift-based employment system that expands job opportunities. We will strengthen key sectors such as manufacturing, retail, healthcare, logistics, and financial services to support such continuous operation. We'll invest in infrastructure, energy, and security to ensure businesses and workers operate in a safe and efficient environment. We'll enhance transportation systems to facilitate the movement of workers and goods at all hours of the day and night. We'll implement fair labor practices that protect workers' rights while fostering productivity and economic growth. The time for transformation is now. Let us embrace our economic transformation and unlock the full potential of our beloved country. Let us work together to build a resilient, competitive, and a prosperous Ghana. I fully understand that the road ahead will not be easy, but it is a road we must travel. The responsibility for rebuilding Ghana's economy does not rest on government's shoulders alone. It is a shared responsibility that requires the active participation of every Ghanaian. Let us rise to the occasion, take decisive and necessary action, and ensure that we leave behind a legacy of economic resilience, stability, and prosperity for future generations. Let me take this opportunity to thank Uncle Ishmael Yamson and the National Economic Dialogue team for the hard work you have put in bringing us here together for this all-important event. I wish to thank all of you who have taken the opportunity to be here with us this morning for your commitment to this national dialogue and for your dedication to the progress of our nation. Together, we'll build the Ghana we want and a robust economy of our own design and creation. I therefore have the honor and privilege to declare this National Economic Dialogue 2025 duly open.
Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, the time for transformation is now, and Ghana will rise again when we all work to make it so. You may kindly resume your seats. Thank you so very much, Your Excellency, for your genuine commitment to leading this new chapter in our history. We're almost at the end of our opening ceremony. We'll take a few pictures now, so I'm going to have to invite Your Excellency back just to the base of the stairs, together with the Vice President, the Finance Minister, and then I'll mention the groups to come and join you. So, Your Excellency, please. The Planning Committee members will be the first to take a group photo with His Excellency and the Vice President. Dr. Ishmael Yamson, if you make way to the stairs. Dr. K.Y. Amwako, Nelly Mreku, Professor John Gachi, Anthony Sapong. May I also invite the Chief Justice of the Republic to join the photo op. Mohammed Samara, Ernest de Graft Ejir, and Dr. Nimoy Thompson. The Chairman of the National Council of State, please, Honorable Doa Jaho, kindly join as well. Thank you. Next, we would invite the chairpersons and moderators to join His Excellency and the other dignitaries as well. Thank you very much. Dr. Paul Akwa, if you may. Mr. Nana Joe Mensah, Dr. KK Sapong, please join. Mrs. Mavis Owusu Jemfi, Mr. Felix E. Adom, Mr. Emmanuel Akwete, please join. Because we are serious, I don't know whether they should smile or show us the serious face. We are resetting the economy. Thank you very much. And finally, the presenters would join His Excellency for the last round of photos. Mr. Leslie Mensah, Mrs. Mansa Nete, Dr. Eli Klim Kwabla, Professor Festus Texan, Mr. David Ofosudote, and Mr. Franklin Kujo. Kindly join His Excellency. Right. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. You may kindly take your seat back. Thank you all very much. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Shamima. Please put your hands together for Shamima, the Deputy Government Spokesperson.